Good morning, or afternoon, or evening, whatever it is when you happen to be watching this. Okay, so listen. Normally, within this little show slash channel of ours, we tend to try and keep things a little bit lighthearted and light and fluffy, you know? But, right now, for once, we actually have to take things a little seriously for once, because we're going to be talking about something very important. So, I'm sorry if you were coming here this week looking for something that's rather lighthearted and rather nice to listen to, but every so often we do like to talk about serious topics around here, But yeah, my benefactor, he wants to give his thoughts about the current situation, and if you've been keeping up with the news, then you probably have an idea of what this is. But since this is just a collection of his thoughts, not mine, we're going to do things a little bit differently. You might notice that he's actually recorded the things he's going to say in advance, and now I'm just going to be playing it back to you via this little tape deck here. But aside from that, the other reason why I'm not just reading out a script like usual is, one, I tend to be one to go into slightly irrelevant and or interesting tangents, and two, even if I wasn't that type, this wouldn't fit anyways because I'm a little bit too far removed from the situation. In case you've forgotten, I'm a world traveler and all that, traveling between universes, so anything that happens in this world, I'm not always aware of these things. Plus, even if that wasn't the case, I'm technically not from this time period anyways. It's a long story, I'll explain it later. So, yeah. Otherwise, I'm just going to set this tape here, and you can actually listen to the thing, and that'll be it. That's all from me. Just set the tape down, get things ready. Alright, here goes. Ah, shoot, wait a minute, this is the wrong tape. Ah, man, I can't believe I bungled this up again. Hold on a second. Alright, here's the right tape that I wanted to play. Ta-da! Alright, just gotta insert this and here we go. Sorry for the interruption. Now on with his little, well, speech, I guess. Hello everyone, 'tis I, the man of many titles. So, you might notice that the video is a little bit different today. Normally I just send scripts to my little beneficiary. He reads them off, I do the video editing, we just work together on videos like this, since he's far more interesting than I am. But right now, I kind of want to talk about something slightly more serious today. And I figured that that usual style of video just would not work for this. Now, for those of you not in the know, apparently there's a bit of a conflict right now in Palestine. Something involving Israel and Palestine and just a whole bunch of nonsense that I'd rather not look into because if I did, I know that it would put me in a very bad mood. But basically, Palestine has been bombed and there's a bit of a war going on right now. And yeah, a lot of people are rallying in support. Personally, what I would like to talk about today is just overall the state of how it's just absolutely miserable with the state of affairs in the world today. Honestly, there's a lot of things I would like to talk about, but the main one being just why people should not be so overly concerned. Now, before you click off this video, let me explain a little. So, like, if one looks at the news these days, one would easily realize that, yeah, everything is just bad all over the world these days. But that's not what I'm trying to get at. I have several points that I'd like to make here today, and I don't want to really interrupt myself any longer, but I do have to explain one more thing before we actually, start the video proper. So, that thing that I'm going to be explaining, first off, I am not Jewish nor am I Palestinian, if that has any meaning to you, but that doesn't mean that I don't care about things like this. Like, this is important. I know this is important, it really is, but just, I have a bit of a perspective on things that people might not really be thinking about right now, and I just want to actually make my thoughts known, and this is the only time I'll be doing this for any subject involving war, because, yeah, it's very depressing to think about, and there's not really a lot anyone can do about it. So, when you really think about it, yeah. It's kind of sad that I had to do a serious video on the topics I'm going to be talking about before some of the other, well, maybe not serious, but more so just important things I would have wanted to talk about, but here we are. Hooray for war, in case you couldn't tell I was being sarcastic. But, yeah. When it comes down to it, when it comes right down to it, the main things I'm going to be talking about, you'll see as I go through recording this video, and I just wanted to record my honest thoughts without anything else getting in the way, you know? If you don't like them, okay, sure. Tell me if my thoughts actually are objectively bad, but otherwise, please be nice in my comment section. I don't want to be canceled like, 12 videos in? But anyways, I also want to make it known that I do care about world issues, I really do, but I just cannot stress over them too much because there's just too much to solve. And as much as I try to have big solutions for big problems, I'm only one guy, and sometimes there are some problems that can't be solved. Anyways, I've rambled on enough, and I don't think I'm being coherent enough, so let's just get started already, and you'll understand as we go through this. Okay, so, as for my thoughts on this whole matter, yes, it really is bad that this war is happening, that this whole conflict is happening, and should we have done something to prevent this? Yes. I mean, who is the we in this situation? The we in this situation are all of our world leaders and politicians and so on and so forth. You know, the people who actually have power in these political affairs. So, why didn't they do anything sooner? Well, I suppose there is a reason, as flimsy as it is, but there is a legitimate reason. They did not want to choose sides because, let's be honest, nobody wants to be on the wrong side of history. So, to give an example of what I mean, World War II, I promise this is relevant. So, obviously there were two sides in World War II, the only war that's really comparable to this situation. There was the side of the Allies, basically anybody who wasn't Germany or Japan, and then there was the Nazi Party, and Japan. So, the thing about war is, wars don't just end because both sides think, maybe it's wrong that we've actually been hurting each other. Maybe we should just stop. maybe we should actually just talk things over. No, wars usually end in one of two ways. Either through overwhelming might, or surrender. And in the case of World War II, how did that end? Well, if memory serves, Hitler killed himself, which means that Germany had to actually surrender because they didn't have a leader. And as for Japan, Japan withdrew from the war and surrendered after the US nuked Japan. So, yeah. And most other wars, they usually just ended after the people leading the wars on the side of the aggressor thought, yeah, this really isn't worth it anymore, or they just outright decimated the other side. So, as far as how things are gonna go in Palestine, there really isn't much of any solution from any of our parts, aside from just, well, waiting for things to go over and seeing just who wins in this situation. Hopefully it's the side of the good guys, whoever that might be. But, the main point I'm trying to raise here is choosing a side. Because in World War II, when people were actually in Germany, they basically had to choose whether or not to support the country. If they were on the side of Germany, they were supporting Nazi Germany, and thus supporting Hitler. But if they didn't support the country, then they were automatically traitors and on the side of, to them, the bad guys. But the people who were obviously against these terrible things happening, the war and the Holocaust, they were actually the good people here. My point being that trying to be on the side of good is really hard, especially when you have to choose a side in many of these situations, because more often than not, neither side within any political view is purely good. I mean, if you look at the US with its political landscape, you'll notice that the Democrats and the Republicans are both bad in a sense. Choosing a side, as much as most people hate to admit it, there's a reason that people do not want to choose sides, because when you do choose a side, whether you like it or not, there's certain connotations that go with it. If you're a Democrat, some people will think of you as just some non-landowning hippie who just doesn't really want anything and just, I don't know, all of the typical things that Republicans say. And if you're a Republican, people think that you're backwards, insensitive, racist, and insert other insults here that are definitely not fit for print. Yeah. In that way, there's a reason why I'm not on any side. And there's a reason why people might not want to vocally or actively support a side when they don't know all the facts. Because, in case you haven't noticed, not all wars or conflicts are just, oh hey, this side is absolutely cartoonishly evil, they're the bad guys. We don't know who the bad guys are in this situation aside from the people who are actively shooting the Palestinians, so who do you root for? You see my point here? And going back to the example in World War II, there's a reason that the Jewish didn't actively go against Hitler, because they literally had targets on their backs. If they spoke out, they would be killed. So, yeah, support Palestine. It is a very important thing to say and a very important thing to do, but there's a reason that some people aren't actively speaking about this, especially some of those who actually are in this place. So, if we're not getting any political help, then maybe we'll get economic help. Well, okay, so you might be thinking, if we can't actually directly support with outright vocal and or physical support, then maybe we can at least donate money to worthy causes, and you're right, but I'll get to why that isn't exactly the greatest of advice in a second. But first, let me talk about economics, because as we all know, life costs money. We need money for basically everything. And unless you have the power of money on your side, There's not much you can do. So, like, why aren't these super big corporations and companies actually voicing their support and actually, you know, sending money and support to Palestine? Well, in short, businesses are in the business to make money. So, like, if you're a big business, you're going to do anything and everything possible in order to make as much money as possible because making money is your goal. And that makes sense, right? So you'll basically take any action that's possible that A, won't get you shut down, and B, won't get you in trouble with the law and isn't outright illegal to make as much money as possible, even if it's bad in the long term. Thing is, politics, as I just mentioned, is a pretty hotly debated thing, and being on the wrong side can carry grave consequences. Let's be honest, the businesses that supported Nazi Germany in World War II didn't exactly look very good when the war was over, now did they? So most businesses are not exactly going to be willing to just be in active support of these hot button issues at all. And it's very unfortunate, but yeah, that's just the way it is. So what about us, the common people, then? Let's be honest, most of us do not have a huge amount of money lying around. Most people don't have at least $10,000 in their bank accounts. Heck, if we're being honest, most people don't have more than $2,000 in their bank accounts in terms of savings. Yeah. So, in terms of economics, ordinary people can't do squat and businesses won't do anything, so the only people left are the super rich, right? Again, they probably are not willing to do so because actively doing these things could put a target on their backs too. And despite them being super rich and thus probably being able to hire a Praetorian Guard or whatever, yeah, let's be honest, most of the rich are just probably gonna ignore this kind of thing, if we're being real. I'm sorry to be a little pessimistic, but yeah, that's unfortunately the case. Overall, the factor of money here is just really awful. So, if we can't really do anything in terms of just politics, if the political leaders won't do anything, and neither will big businesses or the super rich, then who's left? Well, I'll tell you. You might be thinking, if our politicians won't do anything, and the people who have all the money in the world won't do anything, then why don't we take matters into our own hands? You might be thinking, well, you know what they say, if you want something done, you have to do it yourself. So if we're really going to be activists, we may as well actually take matters into our own hands. We may as well actually do our best, and we may as well do everything we possibly can for these people. Fly out to Palestine, send them food, help them out with every single thing that we can possibly do. And yeah, you'd be correct. We really should motivate. We really should rally together and help these people. We really should make our own armies and defeat all the bad guys. We really should do all of this stuff because no one else will. And we absolutely must do these things to save the world and save our own well-being, right? We absolutely must do all this. Is what I would say if I wasn't being realistic. Yeah, I'm sorry, but just, you have to take a look at things from a realistic point of view here. Okay, so listen here. There are two different takes that I'd like to point out here that so many people have that just really aren't going to help anybody. So the first one is one that I've kind of already spent a little bit of time trying to take down, The idea that if you aren't actively supporting the good guys, then you're supporting the enemy. No. Just because someone isn't vocally or actively supporting a cause doesn't mean that they don't care about the cause. I mean, I wouldn't be making this video if I didn't care, but like, there are also legitimate reasons why someone could not or would not actively support a cause of some kind. But the second point I'd like to make is that activism, being actively in support of something, yes, it's important to do this, but we have to be realistic here. The world is just too big and there are too many problems to solve. So, like, I'm going to give an important example that kind of parallels this. Yes, it's nowhere near on the seriousness of war, but it's still important. Environmentalism. So, I'm sure if you were a kid growing up in the 80s, 90s, or early 2000s, you've seen at least one cartoon that either has a message at the end of the cartoon about environmentalism or is directly about environmental protection. But thing is, when you're marketing this kind of thing to kids, when you're trying to encourage this kind of thing to kids, you know, the type of people who have absolutely no power in their lives and just have to go along with whatever their parents say, well, here's the thing. What exactly do you realistically expect a child to do in the case of environmentalism? There's a reason why many cartoons basically just resorted to an end segment about recycling and power conservation and left it at that. Because, yeah, you can turn off the light when you're not in the room, you can not leave the water running when brushing your teeth, you can make sure to recycle as much as you can and not buy things with excess packaging. I mean, those are all things you can definitely do to help with the cause of environmentalism, and these are great ways of preventing our world from becoming, you know, a polluted garbage dump. With so many problems within our environmentalism today, you know, pollution, global warming, and all sorts of other nonsense like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, yeah, this kind of stuff is important to teach children, because if you teach children these habits, they'll become adults with these habits. But the thing is, these are more so just ways of dealing with a problem and not actually ways of solving it. So again, what exactly do you realistically expect a child to do about environmentalism? Little to nothing. And when it comes to adults, you might think that the adults have a lot more power in this matter. After all, we're adults, we're competent adults, and therefore we should be able to do more, right? Well, unfortunately, it's not like the day you become 18, it's all of a sudden the fact that I have the power! I'm sorry, that's just not the case here. Like, I'm serious. Most adults do not exactly have the means to solve problems like this. Like, what do you expect an adult to realistically do, even if they do have their own money, their own car, and their own independence? Well, they still can't do very much to actually solve a bigger problem as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. And back to my point on the war in Palestine, yeah, it is a really miserable situation for all of those involved. People have lost their families or their lives, and as well as their homes, and it's just absolutely terrible. But like, what do you realistically expect me to do about it? What do you realistically expect anybody in America to do about it? Most people do not exactly have spare funds lying around to, you know, fly out to Palestine to help. And even if people did have some spare money lying around, they'd only be able to stay for like a week or two at most before having to go back home. And when it comes to non-profit organizations, yes, so many people say, well, if you can't actually go into these places to help these people, then why not donate to this non-profit organization? They'll be able to help. Well, I mean, kind of. They can help. These non-profit organizations exist for a reason. They exist to be able to help these people in need. But the thing is, most of these non-profit organizations, even if they're not running, well, for profit, they still need to run all sorts of overhead costs. Not only do they need to run the overhead cost of, you know, being able to get all of the supplies and whatnot to the place that's experiencing these natural disasters or terrible conditions, they also need to actually pay the people who are working for them. Yes, believe it or not, people who actually work for nonprofits still do get paid. So, there's only so much money of the money you donate that actually goes to the people who are in need, that goes to actual food and resources and the like for these people, and the rest just goes into paying everyone else involved in the process. So, like, every $10 you donate, only a few cents only actually goes to, well, helping. And that's just miserable. And all of these nonprofit organizations are so disingenuous for constantly using these pictures and videos of weeping children and disheveled adults and so on and so forth to try and make these people feel guilty enough to donate. Like, yes, it is important to donate to these situations, but have you ever considered that some people just do not have the money or the time? Some people just are literally working all day, every day, to have enough food to eat to survive, and they do not have the spare funds to donate. Literally, if they donate spare change, they're not going to be able to eat that day. It's just not fair to all of us to expect people to just do this, you know? And I'm going to be honest, there's a reason why I stopped reading the news. I'm not going to get too much into detail, but when I was in my first year of high school or so, I was trying to diligently read the news and make sure I kept up with all of the world events of bad things that were going on. You know, like many adults say you're supposed to, but it's just miserable. I don't know how these people keep reading about these things without becoming a nervous wreck. Like, yeah, it's just all doom and gloom and murder and war and everything else. How do people live their lives if they're constantly worried about the news? And eventually, I just had to stop reading the news because I can't deal with that, you know? I want to keep myself in a good mood. You might think of me as selfish, you might think of me this way, but no, I do care about these things, but I just cannot muster the mental energy to constantly be worrying about these things. Like, especially when I have no real power to deal with this. I'm now an adult, technically, even if I don't have a disposable income yet. I'm still an adult. I have some independence now, but even so, what can I realistically do for these people? What do you want me to do for these people? I can't really do anything. And a lot of people watching are probably in a similar situation to what I'm feeling right now. And it's just, what the heck do you want from us? So, people who are saying, oh, if you're not actively supporting these people, and if you're not actively going out and doing things for these people, you're a bad person. You're not helping anyone by saying this, because many people want to help, but they can't because they don't have the money or the time or some other thing that they actually need to be able to help these people. And it's just bad. I mean, if you are in Palestine or close to there, then you can at least try to help by volunteering your time and your effort to doing so. But even so, it's a war going on right now. It's a huge risk to your own personal safety for doing so. And the people who are doing so are probably some of the bravest people you'll ever meet. But for everyone else, they'll just have to take solace in knowing that they've donated to good causes. And some people can't even do that. Again, poverty exists. And that's another reason why I think that some people who say, hey, if you really want to help people, why not just donate to a food bank or work at a local soup kitchen? Yes, these are admirable things to do. Very admirable things to do. But have you ever stopped to realize that many soup kitchens, they only ever get volunteers on Saturdays and Sundays? Every other day of the week, the only other people who can actually work at a soup kitchen are people who've retired and people who have way too much time on their hands. Everyone else? Not really. So, like, yeah. And as far as doing good for local causes, yeah, doing good for local causes is a good and noble thing to do. But people only have so much time and energy, and if you're in the working world or you're a student, then you only have so much time in a week, and the rest of the week, most of the week you're going to be spending it working, and then Saturdays and Sundays you're going to have chores, so like, most people are just too busy anyways. And if they donate money, sure, but you have to be in a position where you can donate in the first place. Now, it's important not to ignore people in need. If you have spare change and you see a homeless person on the street, if you can afford to give it to them, give them spare change. It'll help. It's something at least. But like, you get the point, right? What I'm trying to say is just, it's important to think about these things, sure, but sometimes there's just nothing you can do. That's what I'm trying to say here. So, yeah, this whole situation in Palestine is honestly very miserable. I want to put out my honest thoughts on this matter because, well, it's important, and sometimes serious matters happen and you have to have some way of directing people on how to fix this. Now, normally when it comes to big issues in the world and just problems overall, I try to find simple and or big solutions to solve them. Thing is, war isn't exactly something that someone can just solve. As anyone who's ever played any video game involving fighting an army, ever, as anybody who's ever played that knows, the only way of really stopping a war or a battle like this is just to defeat the leader. And again, there are reasons why this just isn't possible. This isn't like World War II, where it was obvious who the bad guy is, and it's obvious who their leader is, and all you had to do was just kill Hitler. So, you know. But when it comes to what people can actually do, well, if you live in Palestine, or if you live near the place, then yes, you should do whatever you can to help. Every little bit counts, even if it's just a kind word to these people, but when it comes to the rest of us, which is like 90% of the population, there really isn't that much that you can really do, you know? And it is sad, it really is. But all we can do sometimes is just show a moment of respect for these people and then to move on, because that's basically all we can do. It happened with the Ukraine. I'm sure the war is still going on there and it is a miserable situation, but it happened there and it's happening here in Palestine. And I'm sure it'll happen again at some point unless people suddenly declare world peace. But overall, yes. And yeah, even if someone just doesn't try to think about these things that much, it doesn't mean that they don't care. It's why I've always hated some of those people who say, there are starving children in Africa, you know, you should be ashamed. Like, yes, there are starving children in the continent of Africa, there are starving people anywhere, really, but they're there, and I'm here. What exactly do you want me to do for these people? I can't do anything. So, like, why exactly should I put all my worries on these people who I'll probably never even meet in my life? Call me selfish if you want, sure, but you have to be realistic here. You can't just put all of your mental energy into dealing with these things when you really have no power to deal with them. And most people are not super rich or super powerful. Most people are not super powerful. We can't all be like the hidden one. We can't all be like your average shonen anime protagonist, and we can't all be like your classic hero mythology. So, fighting these people who are causing these wars is out of the question, especially if you don't want to be drafted. And most people are not rich. I am not rich. I'm certainly not living in poverty, but I am not rich, nor do I have a disposable income. And most people aren't either. The only people who really have power in these situations are the super rich and the super powerful. If you're both politically rich and have the power of money on your side, then you can single-handedly end these wars. Please do! And at the very least, if you're rich, Warren Buffett, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Microsoft, whoever you are, Bill Gates, get off your lazy behinds and do something! Please, I'm begging you. I'd be on my knees begging you if I didn't have any dignity. Notice how I did not say the name of a certain Elon Musk, because I know in some way or shape or form, he'll probably find some way of messing things up. So just stay out of this. But otherwise, if you actually do have money or are in a position to help, then yes, please do help these people. And as for everyone else, we can at least try to understand where these people are coming from and just understand that that's happening. And maybe that'll just be enough. I'm sorry I don't really have any real advice for, most people here, but I really just wanted to give my thoughts. I hope this war and all of this conflict ends soon, and I hope that Palestine does get freed and that everything does go decently well from here on, but otherwise, I think that's all for today. I know I'm not usually the type of person to go into heavy subjects like this, and next week we'll return back to more lighthearted things, but otherwise, yeah, thank you. Thank you for watching, I guess.